Yeah, I think you're gonna have to recut this. Anyway, so I'm sorry if I'm ruining it by speaking. Well, welcome everybody. That was a great video. Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. This is the Connecting Business Initiative session on building small and medium enterprise resilience toward crises. My name is Kareem Elbayar, and I am the incoming CBI program coordinator. My first official day is actually next week, and I am very pleased to be here with you today. CBI strengthens the capacity of private sector networks in working alongside governments, humanitarian and development actors, and other stakeholders to prepare for, respond to, and recover from crises. Our vision at CBI is to improve the resilience of societies and businesses with more lives saved and livelihoods safeguarded. Our focus in today's session is on helping small and medium enterprises, or SMEs, what we generally define as firms of less than 250 people, to build their ability to adapt to and recover from hazards, shocks, and stresses without compromising long-term prospects for development. Why should we concern ourselves with the disaster resilience of SMEs? Well, by one measure, SMEs represent 90% of all firms and account on average for 70% of employment and 50% of gross domestic product, or GDP, in any country. As such, SMEs are a major driver of poverty alleviation and development, and the UN has recognized that investing in SMEs yields dividends that can help to achieve the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. The SDGs recognize the urgent need to reduce the risk of disasters. Natural hazards and conflicts can reverse dozens of years of development gains, risking the achievement of the SDGs. Several goals, such as those related to poverty reduction, combating climate change, protecting ecosystems, and building sustainable cities and communities, are also integral to building more resilient businesses and societies. When a crisis happens, SMEs, just like the societies that they are in, are affected. COVID-19 has paved the way for us to rethink our strategies and approaches to supporting people, livelihoods, and societies at large. And now more than ever, we feel that there is a need to view risks holistically and continue to integrate disaster and climate risk into all levels of development programming. For the next 20 minutes, I'm very pleased to be having a conversation with Mr. Butch Meily, president of the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation, which is the CBI member network in the Philippines. Butch will be highlighting for us good practices on strengthening the disaster resilience of small and medium-sized enterprises and why it matters in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals. He'll be sharing with us as well lessons learned from the Philippines. And I'm very excited to have this conversation with you today. So Butch, welcome, and thank you for joining me today to share your insights and hopefully inspire more private sector networks in taking action.
Thanks, Kareem. It's great to see you again, and congratulations on your new post.
Thank you so much, Butch. Well, I'll just jump right into it since we only have 20 minutes today. The Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation, or PDRF, is the CBI member network in the Philippines. And we know you're raising awareness, implementing programs, and building the capacity of SMEs that form part of the supply chain of your member companies. Why is that so critical?
Well, Kareem, we're implementing programs not just for MSMEs that are part of our supply chain, but we've got programs focused on all MSMEs because these are MSMEs are one of the main drivers of the economy. As you mentioned, they provide most of the jobs, so they're crucial. Now, it's true many large companies have outsourced their services and they rely on their suppliers, dealers, and the street corner store to distribute and sell their products. So MSMEs are an essential part of the supply chain. As you noticed during the pandemic, we also saw shortages in many daily household items. Pandemic hit MSMEs especially hard. 70% closed by one estimate, and many will never reopen. So we have a real interest in getting them through this crisis and helping them recover.
Sorry, I'm struggling with the mute button here, but thank you, Butch. That's a great answer. And given that SMEs comprise about 99% of the registered business establishments in the Philippines, can you tell us a little bit more about how PDRF designs its programs on disaster resilience based on the different needs of SMEs?
Sure. Well, teaching business continuity to both our member companies and to MSMEs is one of our flagship programs. Some companies, believe it or not, pay for their suppliers and dealers to undergo business continuity training so they'll be ready for the next calamity. We have, the other thing is that we've partnered with the government and other private sector partners in what we call a resilience core group. It's a public-private sector partnership. And this group has developed a national roadmap aimed at developing heightened awareness on disaster risks and how to reduce them, more awareness on business continuity, developing things like tailored risk financing for MSMEs, and making sure that MSMEs are included in climate change adaptation policies. So far, we've trained over 10,000 small businesses, with another 6,000 joining our online forums.
Fantastic, Butch. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really great. And 10,000 businesses is a wonderful metric. Can you provide a few examples of the projects and tools that you have created and what their impact has been?
Well, our tools span the gamut from the low-tech to the high-tech. We, together with the Connecting Business Initiative, UN OCHA and UNDP, we've developed something called SICAP, S-I-K-A-P. It's at sicap.com.ph. It's a one-stop digital hub supported by all these different organizations. And it's a free resource in which wherein small businesses can turn to look for in terms of how to get loans. They get free mentoring sessions. We've turned resilience building into a game so that they get badges as they journey through the whole app. You can earn badges. And we've got webinars on things like supply chain resilience, digital transformation, and COVID-19. So it's quite a successful resource. And we keep trying to do our best to increase the number of business owners that avail of its services. Now, in a conflict area called Marawi, we've also tried to work with women there who give them a source of income. And we've tried to revive the art of weaving in that area so that they can have a source of income. Now, in addition, we've got a number of other tools. We've come up with something called the MSME Guidebook. It's a primary reference material for coming up with a business continuity plan, identifying hazards, having a checklist, key contacts, that sort of thing. Now, for the low-tech part of our offerings, we've got a comic book, one of my favorites, and it's a story about a superheroine who learns about business resilience and teaches it. And as part of her journey, she finds a toolkit. It's sort of a magic box, and it's called Resilience in a Box. It's a mobile app, and it helps build businesses' capacity to prepare for and to recover from disasters. So we've got a whole suite of tools to help small businesses.
Those are really great examples, and I love, as you said, that you're really spanning the gamut from the low tech to the high tech, from the online interactive course to a paper comic book, and that's really wonderful and speaks to sort of how we tailor the various tools and services. Thank you for that. As we get closer to the MSME Day on June 27th, which we'll be celebrating across the UN system and with our stakeholders, can you share with us your call to action on what private sector networks like CBI, member networks, Global Compact, local networks, or chambers of commerce should be focusing on to ensure that we get to support more SMEs in disaster resilience going forward?
Well, Kareem, I actually got to meet a group of women who owned these small stores as part of a focus group. And I could tell from our meeting, and this is on Zoom, that they were scared. They were scared of reopening, which is a natural response really to the pandemic. So I would ask for governments, the United Nations, the Connecting Business Initiative, and Global Compact, as well as large companies, to support the ability of MSMEs to safely reopen, give them the information, provide PPEs, masks, plastic sheets. Coke has a program called Safe Stores that's really admirable. But the whole idea is to encourage these stores and other enterprises to use safety protocols. The other thing I would stress is that we need to push vaccination. Store owners will be much safer once they're vaccinated, so they can be sure about their health. Their customers, in addition, will never return unless they feel that they can safely do so and shop without endangering their health. One more idea that I'd like to push is the digitalization of MSMEs. An old world is dying and a new one is being born before our eyes. And those MSMEs that can take part in this new digital economy will have a much better chance to survive and do well. If there's one lesson that we've learned from the pandemic, it's that we're all connected. What happens to people in China can affect people in Italy and the Philippines. So we need to help MSMEs recover from the pandemic because so many have closed and lost their jobs and income. Meeting those women, store owners, brought home to me in a very real way that we need to work together and push for global vaccination and global recovery so we can finally put an end to this COVID-19 chapter.
Thank you, Butch. That's a wonderful way to end, and I think those are really excellent points. So thank you very much for your remarks today. We've just been speaking with Butch Meily, president of the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation, or PDRF, the Connecting Business Initiative member network in the Philippines. Butch, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and share your insights today. It's been extraordinarily informative, and I really enjoyed our conversation. I think, you highlighted for us, thank you. You highlighted for us that SMEs are huge drivers of the economy. You've highlighted for us that even for the very largest companies in a country, SMEs and MSMEs can be part of that supply chain. And it's incredibly critical to ensure that they are supported to maintain business continuity in an emergency, or we'll see the sorts of empty shelves that we saw across the world during the COVID pandemic. So I appreciate you making that connection. That's a great connection. You also shared with us some of the business continuity training and services that you provide for your member companies, as well as other SMEs who are not member companies of PDRF, but are in the Philippines. You mentioned to us how many businesses you've trained, over 10,000. It's really fantastic. And then, of course, when we talked about the tools and services, I thought it was really useful that you highlighted that we don't just have a one-size-fits-all approach, but even in one country, you have to develop multiple types of tools and services, ranging from the low-tech to the high-tech. So we heard those great examples from you. And finally, you did share with us that you are calling on governments, companies, the private sector, and other stakeholders to safely reopen, provide PPEs, and come back with proper safety protocols. I think those are great messages to end on. Of course, you also mentioned the importance of vaccination, and Western countries and highly developed countries need to do their part to increase those donations to COVAX. And we're all very heartened by the recent announcements that were made, but more needs to be done. And finally, you highlighted for us the importance of the digitalization of MSMEs and pointed out that the old world is dying, which was a great metaphor, really. And there is a new world being born, and we have to ensure that these very important drivers of resilience, recovery, response, and economic development are supported in that transition. So thank you very much. I'm getting a message from our administrative support here that there's a little bit more time. So if you'd like to share with us perhaps one more example or lesson learned from the Philippines, we'd love to hear it. Not to put you on the spot.
Well, thanks. But, it's great having more time. But the whole idea here is that wherever you go throughout this last year and a half, you hear stories about people losing their jobs, about stores closing. As I said, it's anyone's guess on how many of them will be able to reopen. And, and it really breaks your heart. So anything we can do to help the small businesses, especially, because these are the people who can least afford it. They're struggling to lift their families out of poverty, and many of these small business owners are actually women, and they're the sole breadwinner in the family. And if they have to close their businesses, it's not just them who are going to sink back into poverty, but it's their entire family. Their kids will have to leave school. So there's a lot at stake in getting these small businesses to reopen safely, without getting the disease, without facing that risk day to day. To me, they're among the real heroes of this pandemic, because along with the healthcare frontliners, because they earn so little and they give so much, and every day they reopen their stores, they're risking their lives. And so when I go into some of these small stores on a daily basis, I really feel like telling them thank you, and for doing this, because I realize this is not just an ordinary day on the job. Every day during this pandemic that you're open for business, it's a day that you're risking your life to do a service for the rest of us.
That's really, really well put, Butch. Thank you so much. And I couldn't possibly say it better. I mean, the impact that MSMEs have on every aspect of the economy, economic development, meeting the SDGs, and recovering from emergencies, it cannot be overstated. So thank you very much for sharing those lessons learned and those examples with us today. Thanks as well to UN Global Compact, UNDP, and OCHA for hosting today's session. The Connecting Business Initiative consists of member networks around the world, and we are expanding. So if you'd like to find out if there's a CBI network in your country, or learn more about how to promote resilience among SMEs in your country, please reach out to the CBI Secretariat. You can find us online at connectingbusiness.org, or by emailing connectingbusiness@un.org. And of course, we'd be happy to share some of those wonderful materials that Butch had highlighted for us in the conversation today, as well as examples and best practices from the Philippines. Thank you again, Butch, and I hope you have a lovely rest of the day.